Earlier, my name is Ken Kramer. I'm the executive director here at Givens Highland Farms. I've been on this campus for just about 5 years now. It'll be 5 years in July. And I've been with Givens, the organization, since April of 2005. So I've been with them for just over 14 years. It's a great organization. This is a wonderful community. I think that the blending of the Highland Farms community with the Givens organization is a fantastic opportunity. And we've seen a lot of growth and community building over the years. I think that this crowd speaks to that, as more and more people are looking at this community as a place where they want to call home. So what I plan to do for the next 4 hours is just a little bit. We won't take too long, but I do want to go over the master plan just briefly. But before I start, how many of you were here last year? Wow, okay, so only about half the room. So I'm sure all of you who raised your hand, we'll do a drawing, so one of you can come up and do the presentation since you saw it last year, okay? But no, I will go through much of what we went through last year, not as much, but I do want to kind of bring you up to speed and touch on some of the things that we touched on last year. Interestingly enough, I was just at a meeting with our Residents Corporation Executive Committee just before this, sharing with them progress of the master plan and next steps and how we're going. So it's important for us to keep everybody informed in what's going on, and we also give updates in our monthly community meeting as well. If you have questions as we go along, please raise your hand and ask the question, because I know most of us, we save a question till the end. We get to the end and we forget what the question it was that we wanted to ask. So in the moment, please ask it so we're sure to address it. This right here is our campus. It is laying sideways, so this is north over here, west here, south here, and east here. We are currently in this building right here, and this is the main entrance of the campus. And this is our new entrance that opened this year once we completed Meadowmont Phase 3. So if you were here last year, we had not officially completed all 3 phases of Meadowmont. So we are happy to welcome all of our new residents of the Meadowmont phases, Phases 1, Phase 2, and then Phase 3. Just to let you all know, to summarize that a little bit, we had 18 homes in Phase 1. We had 24 homes in Phase 2, and we had 22 homes in Phase 3. We broke the ground on Phase 1 in September of 2015, and we completed just about 3 years later, which is what our goal was. We also accomplished 100% occupancy. As I said, we are on time with the project, and we are under budget. So those are 3 very fantastic things to achieve in a project such as this, so we're very proud of those accomplishments, especially when you consider for the 25 or 30 years prior, this campus had not seen any construction. So that's quite an accomplishment, and much of that is owed to Amy in the back for making all of that happen. So where are we now, and what are the next steps? So if you remember from the presentation last year, there's several phases to where we are going, and we have obviously gotten 1 more year further into that master plan from where we were last year, and we're pretty much on schedule. I will show you a schedule at the end that kind of shows all the phases throughout time, and what you will see from that schedule is that there are no months in the schedule. We simply talk in years, because when you're doing such projects, it's hard to, when you're looking so far out, to say in this month of this year we will be doing this, because there are many variables that come into play. But we have an idea of what years we will be getting things started, and then we'll kind of ebb and flow through there. But Phase 1 are the cottages right here. Have you all heard about the cottages?
Yes.
If not, Amy's not doing that good job she was doing. But no, I know you all have heard about the cottages. Of course you have. We've been marketing the cottages and selling the cottages, and that's the point of the master plan where we are right now. When we were originally looking at the cottages, we thought we might be able to get 20 cottages down on that 7 acres. Now remember, when we talk master plan, a lot of it is conceptual, right? We're having architects and builders look at it from a bird's eye view, and you go, yeah, maybe we could do this. And then when you start planning it and looking at it, you realize, okay, this isn't going to work, this could work, what if we do this, what if we do that? And one of the things that we were quickly realizing with that 7 acres down here, the homes that we were trying to fit in were not fitting in very well. There's a balance between how much home, how much property, and balancing that out when you're doing development. So it went from 20 to 18, and then ultimately went from 18 to 16. So if you look at this picture right here, which I'm sure all of you have seen, it's on the board out there, it's all of our marketing materials. These are the 16 homes that we have for the cottages. So we have 9 of the 2-bedroom den. We have 5 of the 2-bedroom, and then 2 of the 1-bedroom. And this is the, oops, that's the layout right there. And you can see the 2-bedroom den is kind of the pinkish color or salmon color. And then the yellow is the 2-bedroom, and then the blue is the 1-bedroom den. I'm not going to go through floor plans and things of that nature because I'm sure you all have seen that. Again, the point here is to kind of talk about the progress of master planning. I believe Amy had this up on an easel out there. That is an overlay that shows how those homes will fit into the property. Our facilities director took a Google map, and then he took the project and overlaid it into Google Maps so people could see how that ties in with the campus. So now south is down here, north, west, and east. This is where you would be able to access the property. But the main part of the campus where we're at right now is way up over here. But that just gives you an idea of how it lays into the campus.
Question?
Yes?
If the new entrance is going there, are you working with North Carolina DOT to get a light at Tabernacle Road, Old Seven?
So the question is, if the new entrance is there, are you working with the DOT to get a light on Tabernacle? So this is an entrance. It's not the entrance, okay? So this does not mean that this is where everybody will come and go from the campus. We'll still have the entrance up over here. Let me go back just to show you. We'll have this entrance, and this entrance. So based on where you live, you will take an entrance to get to your home. Now in the future, we may bring people in this way, especially after Blue Ridge interchange is complete, because that would be the most logical way in and out. But we do have the same concern that you're raising is what about that traffic signal down here off of Tabernacle Road and Old 70. We have had some preliminary conversations with DOT, and unfortunately, with what they require for a light is a lot of traffic. You have to have, and we just had this conversation, I haven't even talked about this with the greater resident community yet. You have to have 100 vehicles within 1 hour to cross that intersection. So they did a traffic study to see, and I think at our peak we had about 30 vehicles cross that area. Now there are things we're talking about, ways to work around that intersection. As far as entering down here is not bad, it's leaving that's difficult. And so our desire would be able to get a light. If we can't get a light, then we'll be creative with how we can make that work. Now, doesn't mean that it won't happen. What they recommended is that we work with a private engineer firm to continue to study it for us. And if that private engineer firm can tell them that it would make sense, then maybe we can offer to pay for it and encourage them to do it. Preliminary discussion is they're not going to come out and do it with their money right now because they have other areas that are of a much higher priority. They did pull the accident report. In the last 5 years, there's only been 3 accidents. So, does that answer your question? That was a long way of saying no. Okay, here are some images, which I'm sure you have all seen. This has been a work in progress as far as coming up with the design and the layout of the property, colors of the buildings, ultimate styles of the buildings, and then still this isn't final. You can look here, you can see 1, 2, 3, 4 of these homes are all raised and on what looks to be a crawl space. Well, in the final plan, we only have 3 homes that will have a crawl space, and they will be modest crawl spaces. The ones at the furthest end will be the tallest, but as you get closer to that entrance road, they'll be more at ground level. The reason that we're not having them all on the same level is because if we were to do that, we would have to just basically scout the property. And we don't want to do that. We want to work with the slope of the property to keep that natural environment down there. Now, this picture is a combination of some, wild growth and natural plantings, but then some sculpted and grass. And a lot of times people will look at that and go, well, I don't like that bush, and if I get that house, I don't want that bush there. Well, this is an architect's rendering. This is not the landscape plan. We throw some bushes in there to try to pretty it up and make it nice. But what we are going for on this part of our campus is more of the cottage-style natural environment that you might see when you drive back into Montreat, or back into Ridgecrest, or over by the Blue Ridge Assembly. That's what we want this property to look like. It's what it looks like right now. There's a lot of trees, there's a lot of natural vegetation, and that's what we're going for as a final product. Now, that doesn't mean that when people move in, it's all going to be there and ready to go, because we are going to have to take some of that growth out in order to build the homes, but then we will reintroduce that growth. We will also be going through the property and trying to identify all the trees that are above 8 inches or more, and if they are not within the footprint of a home, we're going to do everything we can to save those trees. If trees have to come down, we will be reintroducing trees to the property, because we want that to be a tree park-like setting. Okay? You go up to Meadowmont, it's open, you can see the mountains, all that good stuff. You come down onto this property, it's going to be more of that park-like setting. Any questions on that? Just a couple more images here. So you can see this one here, the patio, you can walk right out and be basically at ground level. On some of the other ones, it starts to go up. And if I go back to the original, you'll see if you're above a certain foot, you're going to have a railing for safety purposes, obviously. So not all of the homes will be able to walk out right onto the grass. All of the balconies that we're looking at right here will be able to be enclosed. The front entranceway that's not showing on this picture, you can see on this home right here. See, there's the road right there. See that little gray? That's the road. There's a sidewalk coming up. These will not be able to be enclosed. That's the entry of the home. But off of the living area of the home, these will be able to be enclosed. So what happens after we're done with the cottages? And that's what a lot of people are asking right now, because we're selling the cottages. We're anticipating beginning construction on those this summer. So after that happens, when are we going to start with phase 2 or the next thing? And that's what we're looking at right here. So right now we're sitting in that area. What we decided is that in our effort to create a new dining venue, a new healthcare center, all of that long term, we were better to create new rather than try to renovate or remodel, for a variety of reasons, which you'll see as I go through this. Because right now, dining is over here and healthcare is over here, all the way on the periphery of the campus. Here's the heart of our campus, or the majority of our campus. We have to get the common areas more centralized, so that's what we're striving to do. Well, we've also recognized that this community, much like most other retirement communities that are 40 years in existence, we have buildings that need replaced. Very few buildings, unfortunately, can be updated because of what people are wanting in their new homes. And we have to remember, we compete with newer communities that have been built within the last 10 or 15 years. And those have the 9-foot ceilings, the larger windows, the open floor plans. And to take an older building that was built in the 70s and try to put all of that into it is next to impossible, especially when you want 9-foot ceilings out of an 8-foot tall building, okay? So it does make more sense to deconstruct and then rebuild. Now that is disruptive to a campus, and we don't look forward to that, but it's what we have to do in order to get us to that next step. And like I was just talking to the residents of the executive committee who live here, as disruptive as it may be, we all need to be planning for the future not just us as an organization, but our residents who are wanting to come here in the future. So, we kind of have to keep that wheel turning in order to stay relevant. So, we will be taking down buildings G and H, which we are currently in. We are in H, so this will be gone in the near future. And then we will also take down the fountain room, which is where we just had our social. So all of this will come down, and then we'll rebuild it as new apartments and rebuild the fountain room area. The entrance where you came in, that drive under, is right here. That would go away, and we would introduce common spaces, and over here is where the workshop is. So all of this stuff would come down, and we would build it new. So all this central area is common spaces. Now people say, well, where's this going to go? Where's that going to go? We don't know that yet. Until we engage the architect on the project, we don't start designing things, right? Any architects in the room? Do you draw anything before someone pays you? No. Right, so we have to get to that point where we're signing a contract, and then we'll start designing it. And we will be engaging residents and those on our wait list and focus groups to make sure we were designing in the fashion that our residents want. So, new apartments right here, and then new apartments across the brook. If you look across the brook here, there's homes over here. Again, that we'll be taking those down and rebuilding new apartments. So 24 apartments may be here, 33 apartments may be here. I say maybe it could be 36, it could be 32, but we're shooting for numbers that we know we need in the end. So that's phase 2. That happens after the cottages are complete. And I'll show you the timeline at the end. Also, please know that anybody who wants a copy of the master plan, Amy will email it to you. Make sure you have that. So this is phase 3, and you're starting to see how things are becoming more centralized. What we're doing here is we're getting our apartments situated such that they're connected to the center or the heart of the campus. The kitchen, the dining, the assembly room, classrooms, things of that nature. Because right now we have apartments spread all throughout, all trying to get over to this one location. So as you'll see, as the campus evolves, we'll have more of a wagon and spoke type of design. So 33 more apartments there. Then you'll see I just clicked my clicker and nothing happened other than this over here, which says 50 mixed ILU, which means 50 mixed independent living units. Not a very exciting word, but what that's saying is from a financial perspective and from an inventory perspective of the number of homes we currently have and what we need to have at the end, we need to put another 50 of something somewhere. Now, please understand that when we get to the end, the net gain is not that big because you will see things coming out and going back in, coming out and going back in. So we will peak, and then we'll valley, peak, and then valley as far as number of homes. So what does that mean? Well, maybe we might be able to squeeze out another few apartments here, another few apartments here, another few apartments here, and so on and so forth, eventually to get that net 50 gain, which we'll need to figure out. And that's really the job of the architect. So now we look up here where building E and F are, which is when you came in the entrance of this building. If you turn right back around and look to your right, that's building E and F. And this is where we're proposing putting our new healthcare center. Because right now the healthcare center is all the way over here. And what we want to do is we want to get that connected to the central part of the campus. One, so that our services can get to it. We can share the services such as dining, as we do now. But also, if my wife is living here and I'm here in the health center, my wife can come and visit me and never step foot outside, come visit me. We can have dinner, whatever, and then she can come back to her apartment. This connector right here would be a climate-controlled connector. On the second story, underneath it would be open so we could continue to have our walking paths on the lower part of the campus. The size right here, it says 48 total and 400 square foot, and they would all be private. Now, what I will say to you is that if you look down here, which many of you can't see, it says proposed, subject to change. That's important for every slide you see here, okay? Because we have to just kind of see what's happening in the world around us as we're planning these things. But when you look at 48 total, we now have 90 total. So we have 60 healthcare beds and 30 adult care or assisted living beds. And so we're talking about making the campus bigger, but then we're talking about making the healthcare smaller. People go, wait, what? I'm no math major, but that doesn't seem to add up. Well, the reason is because advancements of technologies in care have reduced length of stay in healthcare centers, where once somebody might be there for 30 or 45 days, it's now 15 or 20 days. So we're not, we're having to have twice as many people come into our health centers just to stay full. We're also seeing people go home because of how the reimbursement bundle payments work. The hospitals want people to go home because if they can go home, then they get paid more for whatever it is that they're working on, if it's a hip replacement or shoulder replacement. And then lastly, what residents are wanting and people are wanting is they're wanting care in their home. We have home care, we have home health, these services that really have only been in existence for about 15 years. They're saying, well, I really don't want to go to a health center in a 400 square foot private room. I will if I have to, but can't you just do the services here with all these other agencies, or can't you provide that service? So we're not going to need near the size of what we've had in the past. Also, what we want to make sure that we're focusing on is all of you, our residents. So right now, only about half of the folks in our healthcare center are our residents. The other half are from people who live in Swannanoa, Black Mountain, Old Fort, Asheville, or whatever it might be. Okay? So we want to make sure we're focusing on all of you and not building more than what we need. Does that make sense? Yes?
Will there be any memory care facility?
Will there be any memory care facility? That's a very good question. And our health services director talked to our residents at our meeting on Monday. And we talked about dementia, Alzheimer's, and memory care. And memory care units, right? Only about less than 1% of those with dementia are appropriate for a memory care unit. Okay? Did you hear that? About less than 1% of those with dementia are appropriate for a memory care unit. Because a memory care unit is a locked-down unit with specialized care for those who are at risk of themselves or others. The majority of dementia and Alzheimer's can be managed in an independent home, adult care, or health care. We just had a survey, and I think we have 49 residents in our healthcare center at survey, and 31 of them have dementia. So we don't need a memory care to manage dementia. We need the skill set and the employees who can manage that. And also there's a limit to how many memory cares can be built, because there's what's called a certificate of need that the state controls. So you can't just go out and build whatever you want. And the same is true for our healthcare center, and home health and home care as well. Answer your question? Good question.
Also, we were zero deficiency.
Oh, yes. So our healthcare center was surveyed last week. We have an annual survey. We received 0 deficiencies, which is fantastic. It's not easy to get that, especially when you consider when Givens came here and we got surveyed the month after we purchased this place, there were 12 deficiencies. And since then, we haven't had more than 4. We've had 2, and we've also had 1 other 0 deficiency. So we've made fantastic progress.
If you choose to stay here in the healthcare facility rather than go to the hospital, does Medicare cover that?
So the question was, if you choose to stay here rather than the hospital, does Medicare cover that? Medicare will cover your short-term stay for therapy purposes, but you really don't choose to come here as opposed to the hospital. The hospital will usually say you should go there for continued care, or you can go home. And that's when you will have a conversation with the hospital, say, I'd rather go to the healthcare center to get my therapy services.
That's when the preference comes in.
Right, and you could go to, technically you can go to any healthcare center.
Yeah.
You don't have to come here, but we're here for you and you're our priority. But you have to have a 3-day stay in the hospital in order to qualify for Medicare to cover that. If we keep talking about that, it will be 4 hours. Okay, so now we're getting closer to the end of this 10 years or so from where we started. And ultimately what's happened now is Brookside building at the other end has been taken down and rebuilt into new apartments. You can still see we have some apartments lingering over here. Now the reason is we have to do this in phases because we have residents who live here right now. And we can't just ask them all to go over to the Grove Park for a year and a half while we take everything down and rebuild it. We have to be able to do it slowly as people move and we need to find them new homes. And that's what we've been working to do. So you'll see that it's going to take 10 years just to make all of this happen, but we are integrating and creating new living spaces as the old starts to come down. And then you'll see in this next slide, we go from this, so you're really paying attention to up here, right, to that. So you'll see all of the older apartments disappear, the lodge disappears, and a lot of this building disappears. Now, people say, well, what are you going to do up here? And we still really don't know. What I would love to see happen is we could have a robust wellness clinic where we have an exercise facility, we have therapy, that we can offer therapy to people who don't live here as well. We can have clinicians like we have in our clinic upstairs, such as the eye doctor, the family practice, the dermatologist, the ear doctor, all of those things. So that really, as long as you're satisfied with those individuals, you don't have to leave this campus to get that care you need. This is a great location for it because if we want people from the outside community to come, they can come right down here in Tabernacle, use the services, and never come into your home or our campus, okay? So the last thing, that's with Meadowmont, so you can see the entire 75 acres. Now what I will tell you is something that has transpired between last year and this year. Can you all see my pointer there? I'm down here in the bottom. But there is a stretch of property here. There's this parcel, and this parcel. We now own these two parcels, each at about an acre, and there is a parcel right here that is an acre, still owned by somebody who lives in Iowa. They may not sell to us someday, we don't know. But what we're doing right now is just sitting on these 2 acres. We bought them because they're right along Wagon Trail, so we certainly can benefit from them. We don't have any plans for them because ideally what we'd love to see is getting that 3rd acre, and we could potentially put some homes right there, which would be in a fantastic location. Right now, we've cleared the area and our residents are using it mostly just to take their dogs up, let their dogs run around. Because right now they're using this area, and that's going to go away once we start building. So this right here shows the full timeline, so 2018 to 2028, and you can see all of the things that I just talked about and how that comes into play. So if you still have this from last year, this is a good area to reference, and when Amy sends it out to you, pull that sheet and you can see, well, where we are. But you also notice that I'm only giving years here, we're not giving months. Because to say, well, in June of 2020 we're going to do this, we can't predict that far out. But we are pretty confident that in 2020 we will be doing that within the time frame of that year. And then the last thing I will show you is this, which shows you what we add over the years and what we take away over the years. Now this is just an independent living. Note, so you got to remember, I said we were going to about 48 from 90 in our healthcare center. So that's a net loss right there of 42. So if you look at the bottom number here, there's a net change in independent living of a 47 gain. And then if you take out the 42 of the healthcare, that's a net gain of 5. So over the course of 10 years, we're really not adding a whole lot more people in the end. When I go through the presentation, it seems like, oh my gosh, you're adding so much. How are we ever going to be able to handle all these people? It's about the same number of people at the very end. I can also tell you that as far as progress, buildings G and H, which is where we are, we need to vacate those apartments. We have 18 and we vacated 12. So we have 6 folks still in this building that will be finding new homes for them on this campus. And then of the cluster homes, we have 3 out of those 6 vacated. And so only until we can get those areas vacated, we'll be able to obviously deconstruct them. So any questions on that? Yes?
If the numbers that you're giving, are those the numbers of units or those numbers of people?
The question was, the numbers that I'm giving, are those numbers of units or are those number of people? They are number of units of homes. We don't talk in number of people because that can change pretty easily, as you can imagine. Right now we have about 350 independent living residents on the campus. and that's with 280 homes. Yes? I haven't mentioned the condos. Do I expect that they will stay where they are? I also haven't mentioned the clusters. So the question is, what about these? What about these? What about these? So the only clusters we're talking about are these two right there. And that's where we're intending to put the apartments to get all of our apartments situated in the central area. Will we do something with the condos someday? Maybe. Will we do something with the other clusters someday? Maybe. You know, what we have to know is that one of the challenges with the condos is that they're 7 stairs up or 7 stairs down. And as we have more and more homes on our campus that have no stairs and are zero transition from one end of the house to the other, people are going to say, well, I'd rather wait and get one of those. So do we take down the condos someday? I don't know, maybe. But I've just talked about 10 years worth of thought, and they're not in that 10 years worth of thought at this time. Now, everything is subject to change, so remember that. But nothing at this moment are we considering. Yes? I couldn't hear the question.
What about the dining room?
The new one or the old one? So the new dining room will end up somewhere within this central area. Now again, this is what the architects have given us thus far. We've told them what we want, and they said, yeah, it'll all fit in this area. Now we can't ask them where is this, that, or the other going to go, because we're going to have to sign a contract for them to start designing it. And we have to get the cottages done first, and then we'll move on to designing everything else. So where does the kitchen sit? Where does the dining room sit? I don't exactly know. But I know it was a warm day, and if it wasn't, y'all would have been out on the patio enjoying the beautiful landscape area around there and also the views of the mountains. So likely we're going to try to capitalize on that with our dining room so that when people are dining, rather than looking either across the hall in an assembly room or out into a parking lot and a little bit of grass, people are looking at the beautiful mountains that we have surrounding this campus. That would be our hope. It's getting hot now, isn't it? Yeah, there's little air conditioners. Any other questions? Yes?
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I have a question about the monthly fees.
Okay.
I know they've been adjusted the past 2 years, and I know a lot of what that was about was bringing the apartment fees into line with the fees in the other units. But over the past 2 years, except for the apartments, it looks like fees over a 2-year time period have gone up like about 50% or more. Are you looking for that to level out? What are you looking?
So the question is a very good question. The question was related to, if you look at our rates over the last several years, you'll see that there's been some pretty big changes over last year and then again this year. So try not to take too long to answer this question. It's a very complicated question. A complicated answer, I guess, to the question. Simple question, complicated answer. When we came here, we being Gibbons as a nonprofit CCRC life plan community, we have a certain way that our fees are set up, and our fees are set up such that people can pretty easily move from a home to an apartment or wherever. And the fee structure is important to that. The previous pricing structure did not support that. My predecessor, Dave, said it was schizophrenic, right? So you had a very low entrance fee on the apartments, but a very high monthly service fee. You had a high entrance fee on the condos and clusters, but a very low monthly service fee. So if somebody was interested in moving from a condo to an apartment, they're saying, well, I'm paying $1,200 a month, and now I'm going to have to wait $3,200 a month for an apartment. I'm going to downsize. I'm going to not have this, and I'm going to be paying that much more. What am I getting for that, right? And so we had to recognize that. We also had to recognize that we wanted to keep this campus, this community, as an affordable place for people to go. But with any retirement community, there's a limit to how far down you can go and still be able to have the revenue and funds to keep the community viable and having money to put back into the campus. What we recognized is that with the rate structure that was in place, there was not enough revenue coming into this campus to put capital back into it to take care of it. If you walked through this campus 3 years ago and you walked down the hallways, you would have seen cinder block walls, old carpet, and old fluorescent lights. It's hard to sell that stuff when everybody else has new stuff. Even if that new stuff was built 20 years ago, it's still hard to compete with that. So we've put about probably $6 million into this campus just in the last 6 years to bring it up to just a base level. But we know we need to do more than that, and we need to be able to keep things taken care of. So we had a company called Love & Company come in and do a pricing study. And they compared our pricing to 7 other retirement communities in the area. And where does our pricing fit with theirs? And when we engaged them to do that study, we said we want you to do 2 things. 1, we want to have a pricing that we can stay with. And 2, we want to have a pricing that is competitive and that it is below what the other communities are, because we wanted to try to commit to having a lower price point. So what I can tell you is if you compare our pricing and you were to do the math on it, we're about 15 to 20% lower than the Estates campus. So when you look at their pricing, their square footage, we're about 15 to 20% lower. And that's what we want to try to do. We also have to be careful in that when people say, I like the lower prices, but can we have a swimming pool? And can we have a movie theater? And can we have this, that, and the other? And it's great if you want to have those amenities. Problem is, every time you start adding those amenities, there's only one way for us to pay for that, and that's through the monthly service fees. So there is a very delicate balance. So we're doing a lot of listening with the residents to know what's important to our campus. What we're hearing right now, the most important thing to this campus is community. The people who come here because they want to be part of a community. It's not because of a movie theater we have, or it's not because of the Olympic-sized swimming pool we have with the high dive, or this, that, or the other. It's about the amenity which is in this room and living on this campus. And so that's what we want to try to be respectful for, or of. The pricing that we have today should stay where it is, aside from the typical annual increases that we might implement relative to changes in the economy, okay? So I know that the price changes have been a bit shocking, but as Amy and I and others who had to make that decision said, we gotta rip the Band-Aid off. To try to do it incrementally over the course of 5 years, people would have been like, what's going on? So we figured this is the last year, we're doing it one fell swoop, and we're done. Now, one thing we will also try to do, which was a good question raised by our residents executive committee, what about the prices of the new apartments? You have these new apartments going on. What about the people who've been living here for 15 or 20 years? Are they going to be able to afford the new apartments? Well, the honest answer to that question is maybe not, because they're in a newer apartment. And we're paying construction costs of 2020, 2021, and not of 1982 or 1992, okay? But, as you remember, up until this slide, we're keeping apartments for many years down the road. So people who are living in a home who want to move to an apartment, our expectation is that as other apartments on campus continue to rise in price from year to year due to economy changes, we're going to try to hold the other apartments relatively flat. Okay, so our residents will have an option. If they want to move into a newer apartment and pay that price, they're welcome to do it. But at the same time, if because of their finances they want to go to an older apartment, we're trying to hold on to those so they will have those as an option as well. That makes sense? And there's probably a lot more that I could go into. And if you're all interested, I'm happy to share, because we want to give the full disclosure. But really, the meat of it is we need to have the revenues at a certain point so we can keep putting capital back into this campus to keep it strong and healthy. Which, as somebody who's investing in the campus, you want that. Yes?
Do you see the entrance fees escalating, staying the same?
Do I see the entrance fees escalating or staying the same? Entrance fees are a challenge in our industry because entrance fees have gotten pretty high over the course of the last 10 to 15 years, and it's getting harder and harder. So I would say that we're probably going to work more to keep the entrance fees down, and the monthly service fees will be what you see more of an adjustment in. But I can't really predict that. But with the nonprofit or the for-profits that are out there that are doing a lot of rentals, having our entrance fees the way that they are, it does make it a challenge. So we do have to pay attention to that and try to keep them in an affordable state. But whether or not you're choosing a 0%, a 50%, or a 90%, you have about an 8-year point where they all cross and the investment's about the same. And our controller loves to show people that, so he'd be happy to sit down and show you that.